All right, sorry, now it's very loud. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll move the mic in your direction.
Hi, Mike Gill with Global National. Several of your colleagues are calling on Prime Minister to hold a meeting with the Liberal Caucus to discuss the by-election loss in Toronto-St. Paul. Do you agree it needs to be held?
So I think it's important, and I think the Prime Minister has said this, for us to take the by-election result very seriously. It obviously was a disappointing result. I was in the riding myself the day before the election, knocking on doors. And clearly, voters were sending us a message. And I think we all need to digest exactly what that is and actually reset ourselves and have a more robust conversation with Canadians about not only the things that we have been doing, but what we will be doing going forward that address some of the concerns, particularly as it relates to affordability, that they have. The Prime Minister's responsibility, obviously, is to work with members of his caucus. I know the Prime Minister, I think, said this morning he has been reaching out to individual members of caucus. I expect that he will continue to do so, as will members of Cabinet. I think that is the appropriate thing for him to be doing at this point in time. And so I think he's doing what he needs to do.
Amanda Stevenson, Canadian Press. Just to follow up on your comments about the by-election, do you still have confidence in the Prime Minister?
Yes, I very much have confidence in the Prime Minister. He is the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. He is the Prime Minister of Canada. I have worked with him now for 9 years, and I know him very well. He is perhaps the best campaigner that I have ever seen in this country, and I have great confidence that he is going to yes, reflect on what voters were telling us in the context of the by-election, but is going to actually help us to move forward in a thoughtful way, both as a party and as a country.
Mike Symington, CBC. So we've spent billions of dollars trying to control our carbon footprint, and yet the carbon footprint continues to grow nationally and provincially. When do you expect to see a reduction in our carbon footprint in Canada?
So I would just perhaps correct a couple of things that you said in that. We actually have seen that. So emissions in Canada now are down about 8% relative to the baseline that is used internationally, which is 2005 levels. And Canada's emissions have come down faster than any other country in the G7 over the last few years. So we are making progress. We're seeing significant progress in a range of sectors. Probably most particularly the electricity sector has made enormous progress, but there are a number of others. There are some sectors where we actually need to see faster progress. The oil and gas sector is one, where emissions continue to go up, in large measure because production has continued to increase. And so implementation of things like the CCUS work with companies like Shell and others are going to be important in terms of being able to meet our emissions reductions. But I would just tell you, we are very much on track to be able to achieve the target that we established for 2030. We are seeing that kind of momentum, and I think that a number of the measures that we are in the process of putting into place will actually help us to get there.
Josh Gapin, DOB Energy. Just wanted to ask you, some people think that an emissions cap will be a production cap and that will have a negative effect on world energy security. What do you say to people with those concerns?
So, I mean, I think those are legitimate questions. And certainly we've spent a lot of time trying to design the emissions cap in a way that is focused very much on emissions and not on production. So, for example, you would see that in the profile that's assumed in the emissions cap, we actually see production growing through 2030 in Alberta and in Saskatchewan.